All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Bob Arum lets the world know that Errol Spence Jr. versus Danny Garcia is going to flop and says that the PBC pay-per-view for the Charlo brothers, did around 70,000 pay-per-views. I am doing this video just so that you know what a storyteller Bob Arum is in many areas. So you might also want to check him on things related to Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. But let's get into what he has to say about Errol Spence Jr. and Danny Garcia in this video. All right, welcome back. Welcome back. So, enjoyed a very good live stream yesterday on Blue Blood Sports TV's channel. Shout out to Blue Blood Sports TV. He had an interview with Bob Arum, and it was long. It was he and his co-host Curtis Anderson interviewed Bob Arum on their channel, and it was a very enlightening interview. Not necessarily in the sense of you gaining some real truth from Bob Arum, but just in seeing how this guy's mind work and seeing if you are, what kind of answers he's given to these questions. He was talking about a lot of the conversation covered Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. But in that conversation, after that particular section, they talked about pay-per-views and Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. And what Bob Arum said was that the only pay-per-view that is worth making between the top, only pay-per-view worth making in the U.S. right now is with the welterweights with the PBC is Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford. And he specifically said that the fight between Danny Garcia and Errol Spence Jr. will flop. He also talked and told this story about how he almost, gotta love those almost with Bob Arum, almost got the Terence Crawford versus Manny Pacquiao fight done. He was that close, right? But it was just problems with the health department somewhere in Malaysia that caused the problem. Other than that, that fight was a go. Man, I'm not buying any of that nonsense. First and foremost, the idea that Errol Spence Jr. and Danny Garcia will flop, but Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence will not flop. I don't buy that. First, Danny Garcia is just as big a name as Terence Crawford. And Danny Garcia brings a Puerto Rican fan base that is very, very active. And Errol Spence Jr. brings the Black American fan base that is very active. And those two guys come together and they make for a terrific fight. I personally can't see how a Danny Garcia versus Errol Spence Jr. would flop. With Errol Spence Jr. coming off of a car accident and all the wondering about how he's going to look, and look at all the energy around this fight. I've been doing videos about the Errol Spence Jr. Danny Garcia fight for maybe 2 months now. And people show a lot of interest in that particular fight, more so even at an earlier stage than people are showing with Gervonta Davis and Leo Santa Cruz. There was more interest in the Errol Spence Jr. Danny Garcia fight throughout almost the entire promotion of the Charlo fight. There's more conversation going on in the United States about Errol Spence Jr. and Errol Spence Jr. and Danny Garcia than there is with any type of conversation about Tyson Fury with the exception of, obviously what's going on with Canelo Alvarez. Dude, Errol Spence Jr. is going to be perfectly fine on pay-per-view, and he does not need Terence Crawford to be successful in that regard. Now, would it be a successful fight with Terence Crawford on pay-per-view? I absolutely do believe that it would be, and it might do as well, or it might do better than Danny Garcia. But if I can't see a scenario where if Errol Spence Danny Garcia flops, that Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford is just going to be astronomical and do so great, because Top Rank has never really built Terence Crawford's reputation. In fact, if you look what's going on with Terence Crawford over the last year, with so many people criticizing his level of competition, I don't know exactly why it would be that Bob Arum would think that people would be particularly excited about seeing him fight anybody, right? I don't see any excitement really about the Kell Brook fight. I don't see any excitement. I didn't see any excitement for Terence Crawford on the for the Egas Kalvanakis fight. Didn't see any excitement for the Amir Khan fight, and that Amir Khan fight is one that actually only did like this guy Bob Arum is trying to convince you that Terence Crawford versus Amir Khan on ESPN pay-per-view can do, what do they say? It did like 100 or 150,000, but Errol Spence Jr. versus Danny Garcia is going to do half of that, or even the Charlos did half of that one. No, man, I'm not feeling it, man. There were more people that were just being somebody that is on the internet talking about boxing on a regular basis and have people from all different areas of life talking to me about boxing. I know who watched what fights, okay? And Amir Khan there was significantly less interest in the Amir Khan versus Terence Crawford fight than there was for the Jamal Charlo versus Jason Rosario fight. But see, this is another thing with Bob Arum. Bob Arum just be making stuff up. You know what I'm saying? Like, if all of the estimates that people have gotten from the Charlo fight, and what you heard was somewhere between 150 and 250, right? Between 150 and 250,000 buys. Isn't it amazing that Bob Arum would just cut that 150 almost in half to 70, right? And every fight that he has is an absolute and complete flop if it's not with Top Rank. But that's not that's not unusual for promoters. Excuse me. Somebody says, get your stuff together. Don't fix your mic I got to fix this mic. It's not my mic. It's my mic stand. But we'll get it together eventually. Look, man, Bob Arum be lying, man. This is the only way I can say it. He just comes out and says whatever's in his mouth at the time to try to accomplish whatever he wants to accomplish, right? So Bob Arum does not want to accomplish a successful Errol Spence Jr. versus Danny Garcia fight. He doesn't care if it's actually successful or not, but he is not going to allow the appearance that is successful to take place around him. He's going to add as much salt to it as he possibly can. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he lowballed fights like Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather Jr. because Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather Jr. wasn't handled by him, right? So, that probably did, 500,000 pay-per-view buys or something. People weren't really excited about it. They were much more interested in seeing this Lomachenko fight that we had in the same time around I don't know who he fought. Jason Sosa. Something like that, man. Just that's what they're going to do. Bob Arum tears down other people's pay-per-views. Eddie Hearn tears down other people's pay-per-views. Frank Warren tears down other people's pay-per-views, man. And so you just sit around looking at these guys who are all saying that they're trying to help boxing, they're trying to grow boxing, but every other word they say about the sport of boxing is bad, right? Bob Arum saying, I just can't see charging somebody right now $70, $80 for a fight. You can't, Bob. Really? You can't see charging somebody $75 for a fight. But you'll charge me $5. What are you going to charge me? $5, $10 a month every month for like 3-4 years full of fights that I don't care about? Man, stop this nonsense, man. There is a whole bunch of people that have money to buy the pay-per-views before. Many of them still have the money to buy the pay-per-views, or they will try to find a way to buy the pay-per-view because people need entertainment in their life, and many people really do love and follow the sport of boxing. The idea that Errol Spence Jr. needs Terence Crawford to be successful on a pay-per-view is absolutely and positively ridiculous, okay? If Danny Garcia versus Errol Spence Jr. flops, so will Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford, okay? They will both flop. If Errol Spence Jr. versus Danny Garcia does well, Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford will do well. But let's not get out here on some wild, in these wild statements saying that Danny Garcia somehow the boxing public is so much more interested in Terence Crawford than they are in Danny Garcia, because that's just not the truth, because Bob Arum and Top Rank haven't given people any reason to be interested in Terence Crawford. Shoot, Terence Crawford has hardly given anybody reasons to be interested in Terence Crawford, right? So I just don't want to hear it. This is just another way to take a dump on Errol Spence Jr.'s fight with Danny Garcia, or a PBC fight. And you know what's going to happen next? As soon as this fight does well, as soon as this fight it happens, right? About a week, if this fight happens on a Saturday, by the next Thursday or Friday, there will be reports out there of Errol Spence Jr. and Danny Garcia doing 60,000 pay-per-view buys. I'm already going to tell you that those reports are going to be out there, because that's what people that are associate and follow Bob Arum and Matchroom, fans of Top Rank, fans of Matchroom, that's what they do to PBC fighters. That's what they do to black fighters. Constantly in this this unified goal of trying to make it appear like black fighters aren't popular. They don't sell. All this nonsense. When the truth of the matter is, you just don't want to buy them, and you just don't want to sell them. But there are plenty of other people that would be willing to do so. But that's my take on the matter, man. If you think, man, please, Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia ain't flopping, and it definitely ain't flopping in this household, because I'm buying it as soon as I can. And with that, you let me know what you think in the comment section. With that, I'm out. Peace.